Welcome back, guys. Hope you are doing great. It's Victory here. Well, in this video, we are going to discuss something about like how to build a reusable UI component, which is the combo box. Basically, we're going to build a drop down with the filter options, just like the same way what they did in the shadcn UI library, which is one of the most popular UI library for the React, right? We are not going to use any external packages, any external plugins. Just we are going to build that completely from the scratch. We're going to build this reusable component by using React, JavaScript, and with Tailwind CSS, all by ourselves. This is the UI that we're going to achieve over here, right? So in this series of videos, so if you haven't watched any of the videos previously what we discussed so far, so please go ahead and watch those, the hooks concepts and advanced React concepts and all the things which we discussed in the series. So if you haven't watched that, I already pinned that link in the top right side corner. So please go click that and you can watch the complete playlist. And if you're watching our channel for very first time, please hit that subscribe button. That will really helps us to bring up with the more innovative concepts and everything. All right. So without wasting your time, let's get started. First, what we need, let's create a new folder over here named as the combo box, right? Combo box. So inside this folder, we're going to create the React white. Let's create the React white. Tailwind CSS with white. This is the one. So please go ahead and install that. Tailwind CSS with this particular one. So, or you can use this React with white as well as. Click that. Click the get started option. And if you scroll all the way to the down, you can see we're going to use this PNPM. So now let me jump into the my own terminal over here. Okay, it's asking me to update it. Perfect, it's updated. Clear. And let me jump into the combo box. CD combo box. Combo box. Right. Now inside here, I need to bring that PNPM white project. So PNPM create white base dot slash. Okay, I'm gonna bring that project inside this combo box folder itself. I don't need any subfolder inside that. Hit the enter. That is going to bring all those white, and choose the React, and we're going to use the JavaScript and use the roll down wide experimental. Why not? Let's try that and install with npm and start now. Of course, install it and start it. All right, it's downloading. Okay, so here we are. It has been started, and now if I get into the combo box, you can see we have the complete information that necessary for the white project. And inside the public.html, we have the necessary files, and inside the source folder we have the main.jsx. This is the place where our entire application is being loaded in the strict mode. And inside the index.html, this we have this id root. This is where our entire component being rendered inside this division, which is mentioned over here. By accessing that DOM element, we are rendering our component inside in the strict mode. Okay, so this is the stuff that we are talking about. And I need to install this Tailwind CSS over here. So let's jump into the Tailwind CSS with the React. We already created the project, not necessary. Just I have to add these two stuffs. So let me copy that and npm add Tailwind CSS at Tailwind CSS / white. All right, it's been installed. And now you have to jump into the white configuration. You have to add this Tailwind CSS suite, this one. So let me search for white.config.js. This is the one. And here I need to include that plugin. So let me import this statement on the top. And let me add this plugin inside over here. Save these changes. And now I have to import this Tailwind CSS add import statements in our main CSS file. So let me get into the index.css. I'm going to delete everything. Then I'm going to bring that over here. Okay. Just keep that alone. And I don't need this app.css. Let me delete that app.css, and inside the app.jsx, I'm going to delete everything. Then I'm going to bring the basic root boilerplate code RAFCE app. Basically this RAFCE is just a shorthand extension. You can install it from where? From the go to the extension tab and search for this React snippets. If you simply search for React snippets, you can see that they do have this simple React snippets, and ES7 React snippets. Please go ahead and install these two extensions so you can create the boilerplate code in just by using those shorthands. All right. So now we have our app.jsx, and let me jump into the main.jsx. I don't need this. Okay, it's everything is fine, perfectly fine. Okay, let's run this application npm run dev, which is going to open this application in localhost. Let me bring that. There we go. So we have our app just running up and running perfectly fine. Let me delete this. Okay, so now I need to make sure that the Tailwind CSS is being installed properly. So we imported everything, which is perfectly fine. Everything needs to be run perfectly. Let's check it out. Now inside the app.jsx, before running the Tailwind CSS, you have to install this Tailwind IntelliSense. You have to install this Tailwind CSS IntelliSense, this extension that gives you the suggestions when you're writing the Tailwind utility classes. Okay. Now inside the app.jsx, I need to make sure this should be text blue 500. Let's make sure that the colors and everything is been working. Okay, now you can see the color has been changed successfully on the top right. Let me make it a little bit bigger. So 4XL. So now you can see there is a changes in the font size as well as, which means it indicates that the Tailwind CSS it's working fine. So let's jump into it. So I'm gonna bring the width needs to be screen, height needs to be screen, flex item center, justify center. So that will brings the entire app component in the whatever the component it is, it brings everything in the center of the screen. So now we have the app over here. Okay. So now what I need to do is I have to create that like the combo box, right? So for that, what I have to do is, so basically we need some sample data, right? So let me get into the source folder. Let me create a new folder called utils. Inside the utils, I'm going to create the new file called data.js. Inside the data.js, I'm going to bring this sample array, this one. See, countries with the object list of is an array of object which carries the label and value as a property inside an object. Each object carries the label and the value, both are strings, right? Save it. This is the data that I'm going to use. You can either pause the video and type it by yourself, or you can ask the chat GPT to generate something like this. It gives you some random data. Okay, so let me stop this. Perfect. And here inside the source folder, I'm going to create a new folder called components. And inside the components, I'm going to create a new file called index.js in order to export all the files from a single file. Then I'm going to create a new file called one more file, which is going to be the combo box, right? So let's generate that. So let's say combo box.jsx. Let's say RAFC, say, let's bring the combo box, save it. And in from the index, I'm going to export that combo box. So let's say export default as combo box from where, from /combo box. So maybe even in the future, if you're having a multiple components in the same folder, instead of importing everything as a separate import line, we can export it from a single file. So we can import it in a single line. That's why we are using this index.js for exporting the component alone. So close this index.js and let me bring this combo box over here. Combo box, save it. Okay. So now what I have to do is, so basically we are going to create a very custom hook, because once the combo box is being opened, you can see if you click outside, it will be closed. On focus, whenever you are clicking here, it has been opening, right? So even when you are clicking outside, it is closing automatically. So that's for that particular purpose only we are going to have that like what is it, the custom hook. So let's go ahead and design that custom hooks. So inside the new source folder, I'm going to create myself a new folder called hooks. Inside the hook folder, I'm going to create that use click outside.js. Okay, that's the custom hook that we are going to design now. So let's go ahead and start writing the code for that. Okay, so here, wait a second, just a minute. Okay, so here we are. So here, now what I need to do is, let me bring that import statement. So import React from React. Perfect. Then I just have to export const use click outside, which is going to get the two different parameters itself. One which is going to be the reference, and another one which is going to be the handler function for that. Okay, and inside here I'm going to access the use effect. So let's say react dot use effect hook is going to take two different parameters. One is going to be a nameless arrow function, and another one is going to be the array dependency injection. If there is any changes on the reference or the handler function, it just need to re-render this entire use effect hook. And inside the use effect hook, I'm going to have the listener function, which is going to expect the event as a parameter. Then let's open it. If I don't have the reference itself, if I don't have the reference, or if the reference dot current dot contains the event dot target itself, target, then I just have to return. I don't want to do anything else. If I don't have the so basically what we're trying to do is, if the user clicking inside that reference container, then it should be persisted. You should not close that pop-up. If the user clicks outside the container, then we need to close it. That's why we are saying, even if I don't have a reference for that particular container, you don't do anything. If I have the reference and still if the user is still inside the same referenced container itself, don't do anything. If the user clicks outside the container, then what we have to do? At this point, we need to call the handler function. Okay. So right after here, then I'm just going to say document.add event listener. Basically, we are going to add an event listener, which is going to be mouse down. Then I just need to map that listener over here. At the end, I just have to clean it up properly. So return here document.remove event listener, which that mouse down event itself, then supply that handler, which is the listener itself. Okay, this is the custom hook which we are designed for ourselves for the pop-up. Whenever we are opening, if you click it, it will bring the pop-up, and if you click outside, or that will close that pop-up simultaneously. Not simultaneously, it will close the pop-up instantly. Okay, so now let's jump into the combo box. Okay, so basically this combo box, it needs to be a reusable one. So you need to supply the options, then you need to supply your what is it, the placeholders and everything, then you need to supply the changes and everything, the reference functions, right? So these are the props that this function is going to be. The options is nothing but your the array of objects is the label and the value pair. So that's the options. Then placeholder, you can customize this placeholder. I'm just going to say select option by default. Select option, that's the default one. If the user needs to use a custom placeholder, he can able to see. Then on change is the function, that's the reference function, which helps us to collect the selected options back. Okay, so that's the on change reference function that we want to send it. All right, now inside over here, I need a state, right? So basically, let's say const, let's keep it as open, and is set open, which is going to be the react.use state value. By default, it's going to be the false value. Okay, then right after here, let's bring the query which the user wants to search something. So let's say we are basically displaying the data. If the user wants to search something, we have to display, we have to collect that state, right? For that, I'm going to say const query and set query, which equals to react.use state, by default an empty string. Then right after here, I need to select the highlighted index, the selected index. So let's say const selected index, and set selected index, which is equals to react.use state, okay, 0. The 0th index will be the selected index by default. Okay, then we need to get the selected object. So let's say const selected and set selected, which is equals to react.use state null. Okay, then we need to create ourselves the reference container. So because this is the division, right? If the user clicks inside anywhere here, we are not supposed to close it, but if we click outside, then we need to close it. So for that, I need to create a reference for this. So for that, I'm just going to say create container reference is equals to react.use reference hook, and by default it is going to be null. Okay, then we need to access that the use click outside hook. So let's bring that use click outside, bring it, and that is going to collect the reference first. So that is going to be the container reference. Then it's going to have an handler function, which is going to be an arrow function. Open it, and let's say set open as false. Okay, that's it. Because if the user clicks outside, basically we just want to change the state into false. Either create this as a separate function and supply that as a reference, or since it's a simple single line function, it's better to be like this. Sorry, save it. Okay, which is perfectly fine. And okay, these are all the stuff that we needed right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and start bring that the division. So for this division, basically I need to supply the reference which we have, that so which is going to be the container reference itself. That's the reference which we created. Then class name. Okay, so for this I'm going to say set position as the relative, and with minimum it's going to be 72. That's the division that we are setting it up for it. Okay, and now inside here what I'm going to do is basically we are going to bring the division. So let's create one more division, which is going to be flex item center, and gap needs to be 2, and flex needs to be 1 completely, and it needs to have a border. So save it, and padding needs to be 2. That's how it looks. And then the border color needs to be gray color 200, and that's how it needs to be. And rounded needs to be medium. Okay, and inside here I'm just going to bring a paragraph tag, or let's keep it as a label itself, label. This is not necessary. Let's bring that label, which is going to be we need to bring that placeholder, right? So let's bring that placeholder here, placeholder, save it, select option. Then right after here I'm gonna bring the icon. So for that I need to add one more package. Let's add that pnpm add lose it react, import this icon package, then pnpm run dev. So let's jump into the lose it react dev. So let's search for chevron, so which is basically we need this icon, chevron ups and down. So search for that chevron ups down icon. That's the one. Bring that, save it. So that will bring that icon. And then size, which is going to be 14. I think 16 would be great, 16. And then class name, which is going to be text neutral color 600, something like that. Then margin left auto. That will bring it to the right side corner. For this label, I'm just going to change this into what is it? Placeholder, which is okay. Let's say text needs to be base and text neutral 600, something like that, right? That would be more than enough. Okay, now for this division I need to make sure, let me enable the word wrap so you can see it completely. For this division, let's say cursor as a pointer one. So this is how okay, so why since it is the, let's bring the cursor pointer here also. Okay, this is how. All right, perfect. Now when I click this, it needs to bring that pop-up, right? The bottom UL section, just like over here, this one. Let's bring that division. For that, this is the division. Right after here, let me bring that div class name absolute position. Okay, and it needs to be inset x0, right? Whatever the width is, it needs to take that complete width. Insert x needs to be 0, and z index needs to be top of everything. So let's bring that. Then from the okay, let's leave it as it is. Save it. Okay, so now what we have to do is, so for this, let's bring the same border itself, and then border needs to be gray 200 itself. Save it. Okay, so we have that from the bottom. So let's say minus bottom 2. So we have some space over there. Then I need some padding. Okay, so now we have to say bottom as 0. Okay, it's not. Let's adjust this. These are just the trial and error only. You just have to adjust it as you feel satisfied. I think this is more than enough. Bottom 6, that will make sense. Okay, and here let me bring the rounded as medium. Okay, so that would be fine. Rounded medium. And then everything needs to be in the column direction, right? So flex item needs to be in the starting point, and justify needs to be in the starting point itself. And then gap needs to be 4. Now inside here, what we have to do is we have to bring that input, right? So just like here, we need to bring this input. So for that, I'm going to bring a division class name. Width needs to be flex -1, and width needs to be full, and this is needs to be flex item center, and gap needs to be. And here let me bring the search icon first, search, and that for that I'm going to bring the size as like what, like 16, and then the class name, which is going to be text neutral 600, something like that. Okay, so something is not adding up. Why it is being like this? That's the absolute division. So inside here, let's have some, say, combo box or something. Wondering why it is happening. Auto. Just keep on pushing that stuff to the top. That's, or we can keep this minimum height as 60. Set the minimum height. See, that's the problem over here. Let me remove that bottom stuff. Yes, I don't want to set the bottom. Okay, so let me remove that bottom. So now it is being fine. So we'll set the minimum height. So from the top, or we can say margin top, let's say 4 or 2, that would be fine. Okay, this is so far so good, right? So minimum height is going to be 60 or 64. Let's go with the 64 itself. That would be fine. And then I'm going to bring the shadow as the medium. So it's going to have some shadow or SM, something like a small shadow. So that would be fine. Okay, so let's delete this and let's bring this division, which we do have. All right, so now we have this. So for this, what I'm going to do is BG, it's going to be gray or neutral 100. So now we have that, and rounded needs to be medium. Padding, it's going to be 1.5, something like this in all the corners, padding. And even we can go for 2.5 as well, as that would be better, even better now. Okay, we have the search, and let me bring the input. This is the input, and here, so placeholder, I'm gonna say search search for options or something like that. Let's say, what do they do have? Keep the same. Say search. Let's say search for options, something like here, or we can simply keep it as the search here. Okay, search here. And for this class name, I'm just going to say width needs to be full and outline needs to be none. Outline none, border none. Save it. So this is how it looks. If you type something, that's how it looks. And let's change this text neutral in 600. That should be look like that, which is perfect. So now right after here, what we have to do is we need to bring that, like, what to say, the the list of stuff, right? Once you opened it, we need to bring that list of options that we need to display it over here, right? So right after this input tag, I'm gonna bring the list of the filtered options, right? So for that, we need to create that filtered options, right? Even if you so let's go ahead and create that filter options. So right after here, I'm gonna bring that filter options. So let's say const filter options, which is equals to react dot use memo hook, have a callback function, and have an array dependency injection. If there is any changes on the options, or if there is any changes on the query, I need to re-render, because filtering is going to be a more, if you're having more options, it is going to consume a lot of memory. So we don't want to redo the same stuff again and again, so we're going to use the use memo hook. So here, now all I have to do is to return here options dot filter. I'm going to use the filter method. I'm going to access the option out of it, single options, then option dot label dot to lower case, convert it into a to lower case. Then I need to make sure dot includes, if it is includes, then query dot to lower case. Okay, that is going to be the filter function. So what is the error now we do have? Cannot read the filter of undefined, saying options undefined option. I do have the options over here, but why it's saying undefined? All right, so the reason it's been crashing over here, because it doesn't know option. What does the option it's carrying inside? So by default, option needs to be an empty array. So that doesn't throws an error, because now it knows the value which I'm supposed to receive, it's going to be an array. So the filter function will work here. And here I need to make sure one more condition, which is going to be, if I don't have the query itself, what it's supposed to be, if I don't have the query. If I don't have the query, then return the options itself. Okay, so now I have that the necessary information, so I can use this filter function itself in order to render it over here. So here I'm just going to say filter functions dot length. If the dot length is greater than 0, then I need to display something over here, which is going to be rendering that um, run that map function itself. Okay, so let's say filter, we can bring the react fragment, or else I can bring one more react fragment, and inside this react fragment I'm gonna run filter options dot map, access it. I'm gonna access the Here I'm going to access the option and the index out of it here, and inside here I'm going to bring a division, a div. I'm going to supply the key, which is going to be the index itself, the key. Then or we can use the dynamic string literals, combine the index. Along with that, I'm going to combine the option dot value, so that will be unique. Okay, then here I'm going to bring that option dot label, save it. Okay, so now we are getting some. Okay, so now we don't see that. Reason is because the place where we are rendering it over here, I'm gonna bring what are the things that I need to supply for this. On change we need to supply something, right? So first let's supply the options, which is going to be the countries itself from the utils data. Then we need to supply the placeholder. So I'm gonna say select country, something like this. Then I need to supply the on change. So whenever there is a changes, I'm gonna access that option. I will get that option. Then I'm just going to console.log the option. That's it. Save it. Okay, so this is how currently it's looking. So we can make some changes over here. So let's get into the combo box. All right, so I'm just going to wrap this entire stuff into a division, and let's make this division as a class name. That needs to be flex -1, and it needs to be flex column, item, everything needs to be on the start. Item start, justify, everything needs to be on the start. Gap needs to be 2, and then I will paste that option over here. Okay, and here also this needs to be flex column, that one. Okay, so now this is completely messed up. So this is the division for what? For this stuff, right? So let us, right after this input, I need to bring this. Still why it is, oh, I think because of here. So here flex column, that should fix the issue. Okay, so minimum height 64 and the maximum height also 64, and the overflow y-axis needs to be auto. Now it will scroll automatically. Okay, which is perfectly fine. That would be, so now whenever I'm hovering it on this division, class name. Okay, so on this stuff over here, now what we need to do is here we need to write the conditional styles. So let's bring the dynamic string literals. So let's write some common styles over here. So let's say padding 0.5, 0.5, that would be better. And bg, so cursor needs to be pointer, and text needs to be smaller size, that would be fine. And rounded needs to be medium, and width needs to be full. These are the common styles, right? Here, if the highlighted index, so we have that highlight selected index, right? Selected index, if the selected index is equals to the loaded index, which means I need to make some changes on the color wise. So color needs to be bg gray 100. Then if it is not, what we have to do, we need to change the color as the transparent color, right? So let's say bg transparent, save it. Then the common color is just going to be on hover. Every time whenever hover, I'm gonna say bg gray needs to be 100, something like this. This is not taking the complete width, so that's the reason, is because of this guy, width full. Now it's taking the complete width. And here let's add the padding as 1.5. Instead of BG gray, I can change this into neutral. That would be even same as the parent over here. Okay, this is perfectly fine, and this is what we needed it. And now whenever I'm doing some changes, if I'm getting changes over here, this needs to filter the data, right? So for that, what I need to do is I'm gonna have the on change event over here, on change. Whenever there is a change, I'm gonna access the event. Then I'm gonna set that to our query, set query, which is going to be e.target.query. Oops, sorry, target.value. Save it. Now if I search for like country, if I search for Canada, you can see we are getting that, right? So here, if there is nothing to display, then at that point I'm going to bring a division class name over here. Width needs to be full, and flex item center, justify center, and here I'm going to bring a paragraph tag. I'm just going to say no options found, right? Okay, so if I'm searching for something else, it's simply going to say no options found. But the problem is, why does this keep on expanding this guy? I'm just going to set, let's say, px 2.5, and then height, which is going to be 8. This is completely stretching out. Inspect the elements. Let's stretch this out. Maximum height needs to be 8 only. Okay, now this is gone. Set this out into 10. That would be more than enough. Okay, so now this is fine. Okay, so when you click outside, it is not closing. Okay, so that's because we haven't had any conditional rendering for this stuff, but we know that now the filtering, it's working perfectly fine. So let's, even if I search for Canada, you can see we have the Canada, and states, you can see we have the states value over there, which is the filtering, it's perfectly working as we expected, right? So but the problem is, I don't know why. So let's fix the minimum height as 10 as well as, yes, now it would be perfectly fine. Okay, so which is perfectly having it. Now what I need to do is, this stuff, it doesn't need to be rendered. I'm just going to cut this out. So only if it is open, then I need to render this. Okay, what, not that division. So which means this guy, this entire division itself. Let's cut this out. Only if I do have this open state is true, then only I need to render that. Perfect. Now when I click this, okay, I need to make that open. So for that, what I'm going to do is, this is the division, right? For this division, I'm just going to say on click. I'm gonna call a callback function. Let's say set open as access the previous value. Then I'm gonna set the exact opposite previous value. Okay, if I click this, it's going to open. If I click that again, it's going to disappear, right? And if I click outside, it will be disappeared, because that's because of the use click outside this custom hook, which is working perfectly as we expected. And now if I search something, it is simply going to say no options found. But if I searching for the value which I have inside, it is going to bring that. Now along with that, we have to do one more custom stuff. Like, what is that is, right? So here, right after here, I'm gonna bring myself and one more the thing, I need to update this selected option, right? So every time whenever the value is being selected, right? We need to make some changes on the selected value. Like if I click this value, I need to update this value over here, right? So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say const selected option is equals to, it's going to be react dot use memo hook. I think use memo is not necessary because it is not going to do any complex calculations over here. So we're not going, it doesn't need to memorize that. So open it. So here inside this function, I'm going to get that option itself. And here I'm just going to update the set selected as with that option. Then right after here, set query is going to be option dot label itself. And then I'm just going to say set false, set open state as what? As the false. And finally on change, that function, it needs to be written the full object. So I'm gonna make sure that it is returning that full object. Either this is equals to something like this. If I have the on change function, then you can call that on change function. Either you can write it something like this, or you can simply write like this. Both are same only. Okay, save it. Now, even if your user is inside, if I press the key up and down arrow, it needs to change the highlighted index as well as. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say const handle key down. Handle key down is equals to, I'm going to access the event in it inside here. Then if it is not open, then I just need to return it completely. Otherwise, I need to use the switch send the event dot key, what key that is being pressed. If the key is going to be arrow down, if the case is equals to arrow down, then I just going to say set selected index, which is going to be, I'm going to access the previous index out of it. Then I'm going to use the math.function math.minimum, open it, I plus 1, because whenever you are pressing arrow down, it needs to increment the index number, so it will move to the next index one after another. If you press up arrow, it needs to reduce the index, so it will move top of it. So here now what I'm going to do is, so you need to increment 1 point, and then it should not go beyond that the last index of your array. So the filtered option dot length -1, that should be the last index. Save it. Then I'm going to copy this and paste it. This time instead of arrow down, this is going to be arrow up. This needs to be U capital. You should be capital. Don't make any spelling mistakes. And here it needs to be -1. It needs to reduce the value. Okay. Then or if the user press the enter key, so let's say case enter, in that point I'm going to select the option. Okay, selected option, it's going to be the filter option of the selected index, and every time I need to break this, break it, save it. Then right after here on, if that is a case escape, then we just have to set open into false, then we need to break it, and by default we need to break it, save it, right? So now if you're inside, if I open and press escape key, it's not going to do anything because we don't have where we need to use that function. You didn't mention that stuff and everything. Okay. And we need to, okay, so let's see. Now for where we need to do over here, right after here on key down, because that's the place where we are using the keys for the input field, right? if the user if he is inside over here, then if he press the down arrow or up arrow, he should able to select that value. So if he is pressing on key down, then here I need to call that handle key down supply function. So now if I press down arrow, it's moving to the next index. If I press up arrow, it will moving on to the top index. And if I press the enter, that will be the selected index. You can see that will be the selected index, which is perfectly, that is what we need. We wanted it, right? So we are making that one as the selected option. Yeah, it's changing the query as well as, so it doesn't needs to change the query. Let's leave that part. If I refresh it, and if the user selects the Canada, let's say if I selected the Canada, and if I open again, it's still changing query. Okay, I don't know why it's changing. Okay, so here we just have to reset that use react.use effect. Open it here. Now what I need to do is, every time whenever the user has been searching, so now if I see here, if I click, see the Australia is not been highlighted, right? Because the user selected the Australia, but still it's not been highlighted. So we need to reset that. So set highlighted selected index, set selected index into what? 0th index. Okay, whenever there is a query changes, if there is any changes in the query, then we just have to change that selected index. So that will, so let's say if I search for Canada, and if I press enter, and if I open it again, now you can see the Canada has been highlighted. But I'm not sure, here I just resetted the label, but still it's why it's filtering it. I don't know why. Okay, so let's leave that part later confusions. Okay, so now if I click that, it has been opening. Okay, here also I need to bring that, it also what I need to bring that selected option. So what I need to do is, if the user selecting here selected, if I do have the selected, then I need to bring the selected label, or else I need to display the placeholder. So if I select the United States here, if I select the United States, it's going to change it into Canada, right? And here I need to bring that the X marks or something like that. Mm, mm, mm. Okay, so for this division as well as over here on this division, so here on click, I'm gonna have this here every time whenever I'm clicking on click, I need to set this up. Let's bring that and set the selected options instead of this selected index. I'm gonna set this index itself, because selected index is the overall selected value. So current index needs to be set every time whenever you are clicking it, you need to set that value, right? So if I open it and if I click this, it's going to change it into United States. So here problem is, if there is any changes in the query or changes in the options, need changes, only changes in the query only, it needs to re-render. So let me comment this, refresh it. If I open it, yep, now it will be fine. So if there is any changes on the options itself, it's re-rendering that. So we don't want to do that. I don't want to change the query label as well as, right? If the user selected Australia, he can see the Australia, right? And if he clicks the United States, he can see the United States. Okay, so here, and problem is, now I figured out the problem, because we are setting the selected index as the 0th index, right? If the user choose the Canada, right, so it needs to highlight the Canada. So set selected index, this is not going to work. So what's happening over here? So basically this is not a bug. This is just a state logic issue, right? So like what we can do is, in order to fix this properly, so basically over here, this state is just every time when you're select a value, it's setting the 0th index as the selected value, right? So we need to customize this stuff, right? So what we have to do is, whenever a dropdown opens and the user selected the value, we just need to highlight. See, once I selected the Canada, so now I click the Canada, and if I open it again, it needs to highlight the Canada only, not the 0th index value. So that's the stuff that we need to fix over here. So here I'm just going to delete this. If it is not open, then I just have to return it. I don't want to do anything. Return, simple return the value. If the value has been already selected, then I need to access the index. Const index is equal to filtered options dot find unique. So not find unique, find index. I need to identify the index of the selected value. So here I'm going to access that option. Okay, so option dot value should be equals to selected value. So if both are same, then it is going to return the index of that selected. So I will have that current index in that. So based on that index, I can set the value, set selected index as the index. Okay, so here if the index is greater than or equals to 0, then I just need to set the value with the index, or else 0. Okay, save it, just for like what to say, we don't want to run into any extra error stuff. That's why we are writing that condition over here. Else I'm just going to say set selected index as the 0th index. Save it. And this needs to be changed every time whenever there is a changes on what, on open and on selected and on the filtered options. All right, now you can see it's highlighting the Canada. If I select the India, it is going to change it into India. If I choose Australia, it's going to change it into Australia. And if I search for Germany, if I press enter, Germany is being highlighted, and you can see Germany is being changed over there. Okay, perfect. So every time whenever we are pressing it, it's changing the select dot options, and still the query is being filtering. Okay, so this is what. Okay, so we are having an error. Why? Once I click that, it's getting an error over here. Console selected index is not a function. Where ComboBox line number 17. Oh my bad. Set selected index. All right, so now it's working perfectly, and this is what we wanted. Even if you're searching, it's working. And up and down arrow, that is also working. All right, perfectly fine. Okay, so we successfully created ourselves and fully customizable combo box, just like the same way what we do have in the shadcn. So we faced a minor changes and minor issues here and there, but we fixed it. So even if I explain anything wrong, you can point it out in the comment sections. I can correct it myself. Or if you have any questions regarding this, please drop your questions in the comment section. We are happy to help you out. All right. So please hit the subscribe and hit that bell icon to keep notified. And we will see you in more interesting concepts in the next section. All right. Take care. And moreover, you can have the source code for free by click the link in the GitHub link in the description. You can have the source code for free. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.